Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is June 26, 2025, and there has been a huge shakeup in the Royal Spanish Football Federation as everyone in the CTA has been fired. Also, Pablo Torre is set to leave the club and we do know his new destination. And finally, Juventus are set to make a huge push for Ronald Araujo. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo and we'll begin this video with the big bombshell from today because there was a huge shakeup at the Royal Spanish Football Federation as it was announced that all the main characters from the technical committee of referees were fired today. Now, if you don't know what the technical committee of referees, that's, well, the board or the committee in charge of refereeing in Spain. Now, there has been mounting pressure in Spain to reform how refereeing is handled in the Spanish league, given that there has been way too many mistakes, way too many mediocre performances by these mediocre referees. And in fact, all La Liga clubs met with La Liga and the Royal Spanish Football Federation, for the exception of Real Madrid, to discuss the overhaul of refereeing in Spain. Real Madrid ended up attending their own meeting, and after this mounting pressure continued, the Royal Spanish Football Federation today announced the firing of Luis Medina Cantalejo, who is the head of the Technical Committee of Referees, Carlos Clos Gomez, who is the head of the VAR, also several senior officials, including Antonio Rubino Perez, and 3 other vice presidents who were also removed from their posts. And this is to pave the way for a new leadership model where it will be led, or the CTA will be led by a CEO and a sporting director. Now, we still don't know who will be the new faces that will, take the place of those fired or the place of the CEO and a sporting director. We're going to have to wait and see. But I have to say, I welcome these new changes because refereeing in Spain has been a problem for way too long. And if these changes can bring some positive change, well, I'm all for it. Now, on to the next bit of news because, ladies and gentlemen, Pablo Torre is on his way out of Barcelona, and we now know his next destination, and it's no other than Mallorca. Now, Mallorca reached out to Barcelona, I think it was a few days ago, in order to see the possibility of signing Pablo Torre, and talks began between both clubs. And in fact, Mallorca also reached out to Pablo Torre to see if he was interested, and it looks like the player has been convinced by Mallorca's project and he has decided to join Mallorca. And it looks like Barcelona will be transferring him on a permanent basis, where Barcelona will receive 5 million euros for Pablo Torre. They will retain 50% of any future sale, and it will also have a buyback clause. Now, we still don't know how much that buyback clause is worth, but it looks like Pablo Torre will be headed to Mallorca. And in fact, their coach, Arrasate, has already reached out to Pablo Torre and explained to him that he has full confidence in him and that he will have a guaranteed place in their first team. So it looks like Pablo Torre will be getting transferred to Mallorca in the next few upcoming days. This, of course, will free up some space on the wage bill. Not a lot because his salary is small. But again, 5 million euros for Barcelona. Not a bad deal, especially since Barcelona retain a buyback clause and 50% of any future sales. Now, as you know, Barcelona preferred to send Pablo Torre on loan, but the player preferred to, either stay in Barcelona or be permanently transferred. So it looks like that's what's going to happen. We'll see how Pablo Torre does in Mallorca, where he will be getting much needed playing time to continue growing and developing. Now, speaking of midfielders, we do have to talk about Z Lucas. Z Lucas, the 17-year-old promising midfielder currently in Sport Recife. I talked about him a few days ago, where it was announced that Barcelona were in negotiations for the signing of this Brazilian gem. And while it's been revealed that a second round of talks have taken place where the sporting director of Sport Recife plus some emissaries from Sport Recife traveled to Barcelona and met with Deco on Tuesday of this week in order to continue discussing the signing of Z Lucas, because both clubs are still finding the formula on how to transfer Z Lucas, who is 17 years old. So if Barcelona do complete his signing this summer, he will not be coming to the club this summer. He would have to wait for one more year until he turns 18, because as you know, per the rules, you cannot sign players who are underage from other continents or other regions outside the European region. Now, on to the next bit of news, because Juventus are set to make a push for Ronald Araujo. Now, Juventus are very interested in signing the Uruguayan defender. In fact, they came very, very close in the winter transfer market signing him. The player had already agreed to go to Juventus. He had even talked to their coach, and he had communicated to Barcelona that he was going to join Juventus, but a last-minute meeting with Deco convinced Araujo to stay and, of course, to also extend his contract until 2031. But as you know, as part of that contract, Araujo's release clause will go down to 65 million euros during the first 15 days, and then it'll go up to 80 million euros, which does put him within reach for other clubs. And it's reported that Juventus will try to convince Ronald Araujo to join the Serie A club. Now, as of now, Barcelona are not considering that Araujo. Don't think Araujo wants to leave. Of course, Araujo has already stated multiple times that he wants to stay in Barcelona. In fact, Deco has also stated that Araujo is replaceable and that he's not for sale. So for now, it looks like the player is staying put, but we'll see whether Juventus end up convincing him or not. For now, again, Araujo wants to stay at the club. Now, on to the next bit of news, because another player who will be staying put for now or for the next few months will be Marcus Rashford, because Rashford has once again communicated to Barcelona that he is willing to wait for as long as possible to see if Barcelona can sign him. Rashford does have offers from other clubs in the Premier League and other European clubs as well, and even in Saudi Arabia. But for now, he is refusing to discuss any possible moves to any other clubs. He's only thinking about Barcelona and Barcelona only, and he's willing to wait for Barcelona until the final days of the market. He's also willing to pressure Manchester United to accepting a loan only with no obligation to buy, only an option to buy. And finally, he's also willing to reduce his salary by more than half. That's how desperate Marcus Rashford is to come to Barcelona. And Barcelona will consider signing him once they have registered Nico Williams. So right now, the priority is to trigger the release clause of Nico Williams around July 1st or 2nd, register the player, and then if they have more margin on their financial fair play, Barcelona could consider the signing of Rashford. Again, 1 season loan, no obligation to buy, only an option to buy. And Rashford is willing to wait for as long as needed to see if Barcelona can sign him. Now, one player who will not be waiting for Barcelona is Ivan Perisic, because the Croatian attacker has decided to extend his contract with PSV Eindhoven for 2 more seasons. Of course, Perisic offered him his services to Barcelona. Barcelona never really considered him in a serious way. They kind of had him there as an emergency signing in case they couldn't bring anyone else, and it was the final days of the market. Then they would have considered Perisic. But nonetheless, Perisic not willing to wait until the final days. Of course, he wants guarantees of first division minutes so he can be ready for the 2026 World Cup. And since PSV Eindhoven were insisting on signing him and Barcelona were not, then Perisic has now decided to stay at PSV Eindhoven. So no Perisic for Barca, which again, it's not really a loss because Barcelona never really took this option as a serious one. Anyways, that is all the news for this video. I did upload another video a few moments ago, so make sure to check it out. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, Visca Barça.